Dear learners, welcome to my channel Educare Horizon. In this video, we are going to discuss law of agency. The complexities of modern business are such that it is not possible for any man to transact all his business by himself. He cannot personally attend to all matters of his business. He has to depend on the service of other persons in order to run his day-to-day business affairs. Such other persons are called agents. The law relating to agency is contained in chapter 10, section 182 to section 238 of Indian Contract Act 1872. Definition of agent and principal. Section 182 defines agent. According to section 182 of the Indian Contract Act 1872, an agent is a person employed to do any act for another or to represent another in dealing with third persons. The person for whom such act is done or who is so represented is called the principal. So at the present day business complexities, a highly competitive situation, no businessman can perform the entire business activities without the help of any other person. That means the businessman is required to depend the service of some other people, or they are required to appoint some people to perform the various tasks which are related to business. The person appointed by the businessman to perform various business activities or various tasks of the business is called an agent. The law relating to agency is contained in chapter 10 of the Indian Contract Act 1872, section 182 to 238 of the Indian Contract Act 1872 deals with the laws relating to agency. Section 182 of the Indian Contract Act defines the term agent and principal. According to section 182, an agent is a person employed to do any act for another or to represent another in dealing with third persons. That means an agent is a person employed by the principal to do any act or to represent the principal in dealing with third parties. So an agent is as per this definition, agent is a person appointed by the principal to do any act assigned by the principal or to represent the principal in dealing with third persons or dealing with the customers of the principal. The person for whom such act is done or who is represented is called principal. The person who is appointing the agent or person for whom an act is done, or person who is represented in third parties are called as the principal. So there will be, see, two parties involved in contract of agency. One is a principal and another one is agent. The next one we'll discuss who may employ agent. Section 183 of the Indian Contract Act 1872 says any person who is of the age of majority according to the law to which he is subject and who is of sound mind may employ an agent. So this is the definition. This is the, say, description who may employ an agent, who can appoint an agent. Section 183 says any person who is of the age of majority according to the law to which he is subject and who is of sound mind may appoint an agent. That means any person who is capacity to enter into a contract or any person who is competent to enter into a contract can employ an agent. So any person who is of the age of majority, who has attained the age of 18 years, or who is of sound mind, not an unsound person like lunatic or drunkard or some sort of other unsoundness like idiot persons, or so any person who is having the capacity to think and capacity to take rational decision can appoint an agent. So we can say, shortly we can say, any person who is competent to enter into a contract can appoint an agent. Whatever a person can do personally, he can do through an agent. So this is the principle of contract of agency. Whatever a person can do personally, he can do through an agent. So whatever a principal can do personally, he can do through an agent also. This is the basic principle of agency. Thus, a guardian of a minor can appoint an agent for the minor. The guardian of a minor can appoint an agent for the minor. The next question is, who may be an agent? Who can act as an agent? A minor or even a person of unsound mind can act as agents, but they would not be responsible to the principal or to the third parties in cases where a person competent to contract would have been responsible. So, as far as the person who may be act as an agent, any person can, whether he is a minor or an unsound person, shortly we can say incompetent persons, a minor and unsound mind people, even incompetent person can also act as agent, but they are not responsible for any liability towards the principal and towards the third parties. And in such case, the competent person who is involved in the contract is responsible. So any person can act as an agent, but he is not responsible. Even suppose he is a minor or incompetent person, he is not responsible to the principal or to the third parties for the acts or any kind of losses or any kind of liability arises. That consideration for agency, as far as consideration is concerned, section 185 of the contract of agency says no consideration is necessary to create a contract of agency. The general rule is that no consideration, no contract. If there is no consideration, there is no valid contract. But contract of agency is an exception to the rule of no consideration, no contract. So in order to create a contract of agency, no consideration is necessary. The next one we will discuss how to create contract of agency. So the relationship between principal and agent may be created in any of the following ways. First one, by express agreement. The authority of an agent may be expressed or implied. Section 186. An authority is said to be expressed when it is given by words spoken or written. For example, A asks B to sell his cow for a commission of 10% on sales. B agrees to do so. Agency has been created. The agreement need not be in writing, but in certain cases, law requires the agreement to be in writing. For example, for sale or purchase of land, the law requires the agent to be appointed by executing a formal power of attorney. So this is the one of the most important method of creating an agency, we can say, by express agreement. See, authority of an agent may be expressed or implied. An authority is said to be expressed when it is created by words spoken or written. So a contract of agency is created by express agreement. We can say a contract of agency created by words spoken or written. The agent, the principal and agent mutually agrees in writing or see words spoken. Suppose a contract of agency creates, it is called as an express agreement, express contract of agency. For example, A asks B to sell his cow for a commission of 10% on sales, and B agrees to do so. This is a contract of agency created because a verbal, or we can say the word spoken, that is also express agreement. And but in some cases, the agreement must be in writing. Generally speaking, agreement need not be in writing, but certain cases, agreement, as the law insists that the contract, the agreement must be in writing. For example, in the case of sale or purchase of land, see, as per the law, it should be in writing, and it should comply a lot of legal formalities. The second method is by implied agreement. By implied agreement. Section 187, an authority is said to be implied when it is to be inferred from the circumstances of the cases and things spoken or written, or the ordinary course of dealings. See, in this case, implied agreement, a contract of agency is created by implied agreement, or an authority is said to be implied when it is inferred from the circumstances. There will be no words spoken or written agreement, but the circumstances or the course of actions or circumstances creates some sort of agency. Such agency is called as agency created by implied agreement. The next one is agency by estoppel, section 237. When an agent has, without authority, done acts or engaged obligations to third persons on behalf of his principal, the principal is bound by such acts or obligation if he has, by his words or conduct, induced such third persons to believe that such acts and obligations were within the scope of agent's authority. So this is a contract of agency created by law, created by estoppel. So in this case, an agent has, without his authority and without his powers, he created some obligations towards the third persons on behalf of the principal. See, in this case, the principal has, by his words or conduct, induced such a third party to believe that such acts and obligations are within the scope of the authority of the agent. So here there will be an affirmative act, some act or some affirmative consent from the principal side is there, inducing the third party to think that such acts and obligations are within the authority of the agent. So that is why, see, that principle is liable, or a contract of agency created, because see, the agent is acting in front of the third party and principal, that he is having the authority and power to act on behalf of the principal, but the principal is not denying that, and there is no denying act from the principal side. So that leads to assume that the third party is assuming that, so this is within the limits, within the powers of the agent. So that is why the contract of estoppel, agency of estoppel creates, and the principal is responsible. The next one, for example, a starts manufacturing plastic products. A, B, and C are sitting together. B, in the presence of A, tells C that A has appointed him, B, as selling agent of his product. A does not contradict this statement, though he had not appointed him as his agent. Later on, C enters into contract with B on the presumption that B is as agent. A would be bound by this transaction. A would be precluded from denying that B is his agent. So this is a contract of estoppel. So in this case, A is the owner of a plastic factory, and in a meeting, A, B, and C are sitting together. B, in front of Mr. A, the owner of the plastic factory, tells a third party, Mr. C, that A is appointed him, that is Mr. A. Mr. A is appointed Mr. B as his agent. So B is saying that A is appointed him as a selling agent of his product. Actually, A is not appointed Mr. B as an agent of selling his product. But in that meeting, A does not contradict this statement. A didn't deny that statement. So Mr. C assumed that B is the agent, appointed agent of Mr. A. So later on, C directly enters into some contract with Mr. B on the assumption that he is the agent of Mr. A. So in this case, that contract is valid and A is liable, A is responsible for such agreement. Such a type of agreement is called as agency, is called as agency by estoppel. So here, that circumstances assumes that, or one person is representing that, representing another person that he is the agent of Mr. A, or another person, but that person is not denying the fact. Suppose he denies the fact, or any facial expression or any action from his side denying such act, he is not responsible. But in this case, Mr. A, he didn't deny his statement, that Mr. B statement that he is the agent of Mr. A in front of C, and C later on make agreement with Mr. B, assuming that B is the agent of Mr. A. So in that case, there will be valid contract of agency by estoppel, and A would have been liable for this transaction. The next one is agency by holding out. The principle of holding out is a part of law of estoppel, but agency by holding out requires some positive or affirmative conduct by the principal. So this is also a part of contract of agency by holding out is also part of the law of estoppel. But in this case, in the case of agency by holding out, the circumstance everything will be the same, but it requires some positive or affirmative consent or conduct by the principal is required. Otherwise, it is not valid. For example, a sends his servant to buy goods from B on credit. B gives the goods to A servant and A pays for him. Later on, A servant without A's asking for it buys goods from B on A's credit and runs away. A would be liable to pay for the goods though a servant is not an agent. See, in this case, A sends his servants to buy goods from B on credit basis. B used to give the goods to a servant and A pays for them. Later on, a servant without permission, without as asking for it, or without consent from A, he buys goods from B on A's credit, on A's account, and runs away. In this case, A would be liable to pay for the goods, though a servant is not an agent. So in this case, A would be liable, for the goods, though a servant is not an agent. The next one is agency for necessity. If a person protects the property or interest of another, where such property or interests are in imminent danger and the instructions of the owner cannot be obtained, the former would be deemed to be an agent of the latter so as to make the latter liable for whatever he has done, provided the former has acted bona fide in the interest of the latter. The principle of necessity also extends to cases where an agent exceeds his authority if the following conditions are fulfilled. So this is a contract of agency by necessity or necessity. If a person protects the property or interest of another, where such a property or interest are in imminent danger, and the instructions of the owner cannot be obtained. Suppose, see, Mr. A appointed Mr. B as an agent, and Mr. B used to get instructions from Mr. A. But maybe some peculiar situation that B is unable to contact as the principal to get instructions or directions in a peculiar situation. In that case, Mr. B can act without consent from Mr. A to protect the interest of the principal. So in case that property of the principal or interest of the principal is in danger and the instructions of the owner cannot be obtained, that means the principal, Mr. B, he is unable to access to his principal A. So in that case, see, he is in a position to protect the interest of the principal. He is in a position to act according to his wish to protect the interest of the principal. So that is called as agency of necessity. To protect the interest of the principal, some people, some agents are acting without consent from the principal. That is called as contract of agency by necessity. So the principle of necessity extends to cases where an agent exceeds his authority, but it should satisfy the following conditions. First one, the agent was not in a position to communicate with the principal. Second one, the agent takes reasonable and necessary courses of action in the circumstances. The agent acts bona fide. So if an agent acts beyond his powers, that also comes under agency of necessity if it satisfies the following conditions. First one is the agent was not in a position to communicate with the principal. So in that circumstances, agent was not in a position to contact with the principal to get instruction. That means that action from the agent side is very, very important or utmost important with immediate effect without consulting the principal. The agent takes reasonable and necessary courses in the circumstances. So the agent is taking all necessary and reasonable action in that peculiar circumstances, and the agent acts bona fide. The agent acts in Uberme Fide, utmost good faith, without any personal interest. Suppose he's acting to protect the interest of the principal. See that these acts are valid even if without a consent from the principal. See that will be coming under contract of agency of necessity. For example, A sends some bananas to B with the instruction that B should send them to C. When B takes delivery of the bananas, he finds that the bananas are not in a condition to sustain the journey to C's place and would perish before reaching. B therefore sells them at the best possible price. A would be bound by this sale under agency by necessity. So in this case, A sends some bananas to B with the instruction that B should send these bananas to Mr. C. When agent B, Mr. B takes delivery of these bananas, he found that the bananas are not in a position to sustain the journey. It may perish, it may decay, it may destroy. Suppose we are sending these bananas through any courier or any transport, it will perish, it will decay or it will destroy. So what he did, Mr. B agent, what he did, in order to protect the interest of the principal, he sold these bananas at the best possible price. That is for protecting the interest of the principal, Mr. A. Mr. B, what he did, he sold it. Otherwise, suppose he is sending this material to Mr. C, that will destroy, that will decay, or it will perish. And C, he will never accept it. So Mr. A, the principal, he will suffer it and he will lose the money. So in order to protect the interest of the principal, what he did, he sold these goods at a reasonable price. I would be bound by this sale under agency by necessity. Then another peculiar relationship, we can say agency by necessity, husband and wife. A wife can bind the husband for contracts she enters into for the purchase of household necessities suiting to the couple joint style of living, provided they are living together and wife is the in charge of domestic establishment and the husband has not made reasonable allowance to the wife for her needs. So the husband is liable for the acts of the wife for purchase of any household necessities suiting to the living conditions of the couple, the styles or living styles of the couple, and they are living together, and the wife is in charge of domestic establishment. And in such case, the husband is required to provide, is liable for the purchase of necessities, or necessities which are reasonable, or we can say for his standard of living. For example, husband and wife are, H and W are husband and wife respectively. W chooses to live separately and buys goods on credit from A. On her failure to pay her for the purchases, A cannot recover money from H because they are not living together. So in this case, husband and wife, they are H and W are husband and wife respectively. W chooses to live separately and buys goods on credit. They are not living together. This condition is applicable only living together condition only. But the H and W are separately. They are living separately. And what W did, uh, she purchased some goods on credit basis from a shopkeeper. So in this case, husband is not responsible for, say, the payment of this money because they are not living together. That means the shopkeeper A cannot recover money from husband because they are not living together. If suppose they are living together, that will come under necessity and can recover money. However, a husband can escape the liability if he can prove that he had warned the tradesman from supplying the goods on credit to his wife. He had already supplied sufficient articles in question to his wife. He had supplied sufficient means to his wife for the purchase of articles in question. So generally speaking, husband, the living together couples, the husband is responsible for supplying necessities, and in case wife is purchasing necessities on credit basis, husband is liable. But there are certain exceptions. A husband can escape from such a liability, see, provided that he can prove that he had warned the tradesman from supplying the goods on credit basis to his wife, or he had already supplied sufficient articles in question to his wife, or he had supplied sufficient means to his wife for the purchase of articles. Suppose he warned the tradesman that don't supply any goods to his wife, or he had already supplied sufficient articles in question to his wife, or he had already provided sufficient money to his wife for purchase of articles, so he is not responsible for such a purchase on credit basis. But if the wife is deserted by her husband and thus forced to live separately, she may of necessity become agent of her husband and can pledge her husband's credit for necessities to the extent a reasonable maintenance make it necessary. So the supply of necessity is applicable if the wife is deserted, or we can say uh, wife is husband abandoned her wife, or deserted his wife, and see, wife is forced to live separately. In that case, she may purchase necessities on credit basis, and she can pledge her husband's credit for necessities to that extent a reasonable maintenance make it necessary. So whatever necessity is there, so she can purchase goods from any shopkeeper and husband is responsible. The next one is agency by ratification. A person may become another's agent after having done some work for the latter. If the latter ratifies the act, when a person adopts or accepts an act done for his behalf, but without his authority, he is said to have ratified it. So in this case, an agent is acting without permission from the principal. So the principal, even the agent acted beyond his power or authority, the principal can ratify it. Then it will be legal. For example, A without authority buys goods for B. Afterwards, B sells them to C on his own account. B's conduct implies a ratification of purchase made for him by A. So in this case, A, an agent without authority, buys goods for B. And afterwards, B sells them to C on his own account. So B's conduct implies a ratification of purchase made for him by A. So in these cases, the conduct of the principal, that will result in ratification. So we can say a contract of agency by ratification is there. So these are the classifications of agency. Thank you for watching my channel. Please do not forget to subscribe our channel. Please click the bell icon near to the subscribe button. You will get notification when we upload new videos. Thank you.